And it's time to move across the desk to Alison Sargent, who's here with the International Press Review. And Alison, you're starting with an interview in the Financial Times, an exclusive interview with none other than, of course, Donald Trump.
That's right. And in this interview, Donald Trump takes a very hard stance on North Korea. If we take a look at the front page of the Financial Times, we can see the quote that is making all these big waves. He says, "If China is not going to solve North Korea, we will." Now, Trump said he would use trade as an incentive to get China to cooperate and put pressure on North Korea to end its missile program. But if they don't, the U.S. would take action against North Korea on their own. This interview has been picked up by nearly every paper in the U.S. and in the U.K., as well as in Asia. I pulled out the article in the Wall Street Journal that talks about it. They remind us that Trump has already been aggressive with North Korea and China in a number of tweets, and has even suggested the U.S. could strike North Korea preemptively. And the paper says North Korea is going to be at the top of the agenda when Donald Trump meets with the Chinese president this Thursday.
And of course, that meeting with Xi Jinping is not the only meeting that Trump is having. He's also meeting another world leader, Egyptian President Fattah al-Sisi.
He is, and it's not the first time these two men are meeting. They actually met back in the fall when Donald Trump was just a candidate for the White House. That's the photo that we see of the two of them today in the Egyptian paper, the Daily News. They say Egypt is looking for opportunities in al-Sisi's visit to the U.S., and this article says the meeting could represent a new stage in Egyptian-American relations. But not everyone is pleased about this new stage, in particular human rights advocates. There's an opinion piece in the Washington Post today that says human rights advocates in Cairo and Washington are bracing themselves for an ugly scene Monday, the quote, love-in at the White House between these two leaders. Now, this piece calls on Trump in particular to ask for the liberation of an American citizen, Aya Hijazi. That's the photo that we see in that paper. She's currently being detained in Egypt on what are believed to be false charges.
Well, it seems unlikely that Donald Trump is going to tackle her case or any other tough subjects with Sisi.
Yeah, no, the two of them are not expected to talk about human rights at all. The Middle East Eye points out that this is in contrast with the Obama administration, who had criticized President Sisi for carrying down on political opponents and other human rights abuses. There's also an interesting article in BuzzFeed today that says that Trump's election dealt a fatal blow to the Arab Spring. They interview a number of activists in Egypt who say they used to turn to the international community for support, but since Trump's election, as one journalist says, the Sisi regime feels it has backing for its actions.
Well, let's move on to Venezuela now. We're going to have a quick word about the elections that are happening there.
That's right. The left-wing candidate, Lenin Moreno, won that election by a small margin. It was an incredibly close race. One local paper, El Universo, says it was a hard-fought victory and points out that it was a day of controversy because when the results came in, there were two pollsters who gave different figures, so both candidates were declared the winner for a brief time. And as a Spanish paper, El País, reports, Guillermo Lasso is going to contest his loss. He wants the vote to be recounted. But there's one person in particular who is very pleased that Lasso lost, and that is Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks. Because Lasso had said that if he won, he would give Julian Assange just 30 days to leave Ecuador's embassy in London, where he's been hiding or in refuge for several years now. And Julian Assange sent a kind of a sassy tweet to rub it into Lasso's face that he lost. He says, "I cordially invite Mr. Lasso to withdraw from Ecuador in the next 30 days, with or without his millions offshore."
Oh, that looks like it's going to be something we can keep an eye on, Julian Assange's Twitter feed over the next week or two. And finally, a quick word on Gibraltar. The tiny British territory in southern Spain has become the latest sore spot in the Brexit negotiations.
That's right. That argument flared up over the weekend, and there's one former Tory leader who even said that the UK was ready to go to war with the EU over Gibraltar. There's an opinion piece in The Independent today that says that the fight with Spain over Gibraltar shows that many still live in the great shadow of the British Empire. And this writer says the UK has to be mindful of its other associated territories that aren't in the EU and could be affected by Brexit, such as the Isle of Man and Guernsey and other places that some of our viewers might not even have heard of. The UK's colonial history has left kind of a minefield of complications in these Brexit negotiations, and you can see that illustrated today in the cartoon on the front page of the Times. We see Theresa May and Boris Johnson taking their little Brexit boat into the water, stepping over mines that are Gibraltar, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. And this cartoon is actually a reference to an annual boat race that took place yesterday between Oxford and Cambridge, two big British universities. It almost couldn't go forward, actually, because they found near the start line a bomb dating back to World War II that had to be removed.
I was there. I saw that. I witnessed that bomb being taken away. Absolutely. Alison Sargent there with the International Press Review for us. Thank you very much.